What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we have our top 10 takeaways and lessons learned video, as we do every single Monday, where we break down what just happened in the fantasy football world. Now, we're going to try and keep vibes high right now. The boy just found out that Breece Hall ACL injury, out for the year. It's absolutely devastating. It is absolutely soul-crushing at this point. 5-2 Jets team finally doing well, and we get dealt probably the shittiest hand we could have possibly been dealt. But we're going to hop into injuries in a little bit here. Rookie running backs, young up-and-coming running backs. We'll keep the vibes high for the people. As always, if you enjoy this, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
All right, so our first takeaway here is Travis Etienne breakout season. And for everybody out there like myself that had Travis Etienne as their 2021 RB1 for rookie drafts and dynasty, or just for how they felt in the NFL draft, it has been a long road. But we can now hang our hats. Now, I'm not saying definitively Travis Etienne is the better dynasty running back than Najee Harris, or the better in real life running back, whatever you want to say. But having Etienne over Najee Harris in your rookie rankings isn't as egregious as it once was, and it was probably justified, right? He has the injury for the entire first season of his career. He comes out in his second year, and he proves why all of us absolutely fell in love with the profile. As you can see here, a young Ron Stewart. Travis Etienne is still my RB1. This was after he got drafted to the Jaguars. People were sleeping on him because they already had James Robinson, and Najee Harris was getting pushed up to the top of rookie drafts. And the thing for me is that Etienne has the profile we all love. He has fine size. He has like 4.45 wheels. He makes huge, explosive plays, and he catches the football. And he has first-round draft capital in an era where DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall, three of the finest running back prospects we've ever seen, couldn't net first-round draft capital. All of the signs were there, and 2 years later, about a year and a half later, it has been a long road, but they are back to being, at the very least, in the same tier of prospect or player. Now, when we talk about what Etienne has done to sort of earn that big of a discrepancy in the poll, his usage has been elite. He had a season-high 80% of the snaps on Sunday. He had 67% of the rush attempts, 91% of the long down and distance snaps, 82% of the 2-minute drill, 57% of the short yardage snap, with 100% of the rush attempts. The usage was elite. And not only was the usage elite, but he looked special with the ball in his hands. He had just 14 carries, and he turned that into 114 yards and a touchdown. He had only 5 targets, but he had 5 targets, but only 1 catch. That's going to get better. I think he's going to be more efficient in the receiving game. But it's just, once he has the ball in his hands, he is insane. If you just watch him, like the burst and the speed that he has, like he can get from the line of scrimmage to the 15-yard line quicker than not anybody, but most players in the NFL. He has a 6.1 yards per carry, and I shy away from using yards per carry, but 6.1 yards per carry is insane. Like, anything over 4 is good. Anything over 6 is insane. I think the only guys with 60 yards or more per carry is Etienne, Penny, who went down, and then Khalil Herbert, all guys who were crushing it between the tackles. Etienne, as much as we thought he was going to be a special receiver in the NFL, he has been a special runner this year. He is second in the NFL in rushing yards over expected per attempt. He's 7th in rush grade per PFF. He's second in breakaway run percentage. He has 5 touches over 20 yards. He has 1 touch over 30 yards. He has 2 touches over 40 yards. Just insane. He makes massive, huge plays. He can get to 100 rushing yards without even needing 20 attempts like a lot of these running backs out there. He is really, really promising. And because he has this passing down game on lock, we haven't even seen what the upside truly looks like yet, because he hasn't had like a 5 for 70 in the passing game, with like 15 for 85 in the running game and like 2 touchdowns. That's how he's going to get to like 25, 30 points in a given week. That's all still in the range of outcomes. I think better days are ahead for Etienne, but this was super, super promising for dynasty, for redraft, whatever you want to look at his game through, whatever lens you want to look through. Our next takeaway is the 2022 40-yard dash times weren't false. There was a lot of talk out there that when Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall ran sub 4.4s, that the combine numbers were juiced. Everybody was running sub 4.4s. Everybody was running really fast times. You had Tyquan throwing with like a 4.28. Everyone was saying, I think that they were doing a different method of keeping track of these 40 times. I think that maybe it was like something different with the laser. I don't know. There was almost like a conspiracy theory because they were putting Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor side by side in like the Simcast or whatever, and Jonathan Taylor was beating him despite, I believe, them running like the exact same 40 time JT and Breece Hall. With all of that being said, their sub 4.4 speeds are legit. They now have the 2 fastest ball carrier speeds on the entire year. They did it in week 7. You have Kenneth Walker with the 74-yard rush yesterday, hitting 22.09 miles per hour. The first player to hit 22 or better miles per hour this year. And Breece Hall, 62-yard rush touchdown yesterday, 21.87 miles per hour on a 62-yard rushing touchdown. Now we'll get into Breece Hall's injury later on, and it absolutely sucks. But this is the bright side, right? He looks so special. Him and Kenneth Walker both look special. Kenneth Walker now has like 350-plus rushing yards in the last like 3 weeks. He's playing out of his mind. He's breaking runs off long. Both of these guys are having huge splash plays. You saw Breece Hall. It was like the first drive of the game on a toss play. Denzel Mims actually gets downfield, makes a beautiful block on, I think it was not Bryce Callahan, but one of their slot corners, and it was just a beautiful play. Breece got in the end zone. Hate to see it. And that brings us into our next point, which is all I wrote down for takeaway number 3 is so many fucking injuries, man. So many, dude. So many guys got hurt. Breece Hall, ACL tear, DK Metcalf knee injury, J.C. Jackson, Mike Williams, Tannehill, St. Brown, Evan Neal, who was like a top 5 pick for the Giants at tackle, A.J. Terrell, David Njoku has a high ankle sprain, Elijah Vera Tucker, Jets lineman has an injury, Trey Hendrickson. For fantasy, though, the Breece one's devastating. You hate to see Njoku, who I think he has a high ankle sprain, is out for like 2 to 5 weeks. And we've talked about Jets football every single week, or almost every single week, and it's definitely getting annoying for you guys. But instead of me hopping on here, vibes high over when it's hilarious, man. We're 5-2. This is the best record we've had through 7 games in forever. Vibes should be high, and it just feels like everything's falling apart, man. We got Elijah Moore requesting a trade. We have Breece Hall getting hurt. We have Elijah Vera Tucker getting hurt. We have Zach Wilson looking awful for the second straight game. We're 5-2, and vibes could literally not be lower. I literally want to die, bro. Like, Breece Hall tearing his ACL is such a bummer, man. Our whole game plan of this year has been playing defense, running the ball. Breece Hall tearing an ACL is so scary, man, because we've seen recently. We saw Dobbins this year. He didn't look himself. You saw Saquon last year. He didn't look himself. These guys are coming off of ACL tears, and their first year back, they suck. So it's almost like we're not going to have Breece Hall at what he was doing this year until like 2024. It's just super sad, man. Super sad, dude. You honestly hate to see it. Everybody came into this year, and I think a lot of these young running backs in like the dead zone area of like Breece Hall and not Javonte, but I guess like Breece Hall, Etienne, A.J. Dillon, the appeal of drafting these young running backs, you'd think that they're a little bit more durable, and the idea was that the older guys like Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, those are the guys who are going to tear ACLs and be coming up with injuries, but it's actually been the young guys this year, like Dobbins, Javonte, Breece Hall now, and it really sucks to see. Now, on some of the positive news this is Edwin Porras. He is the fantasy points doctor. He does great stuff over there, and him and Jared Smola were having a conversation about Breece Hall's injury, and Smola asked, so Breece Hall tore his ACL and he has a little bit of meniscus damage. So it's not terrible, where a lot of guys, they'll do like MCL, ACL, maybe some like, I think Dobbins might even have like a hamstring injury plus like a hip injury. So there's a lot going on there. Breece Hall sounds like the least, not dangerous, but like the least aggressive or like over the top ACL tear of most of them, right? I feel like he dodged on something like potentially not career ending, of course, because ACL, everyone's coming back from ACLs, but you guys know what I'm saying. It's not as bad as it could have been. It wasn't a like PCL, MCL tear plus ACL plus a million other things. It was simply just ACL and some meniscus damage. And he asked, does the meniscus damage change his recovery time? He said ever so slightly, Edwin Porras. Unlikely we'll see a freak 8-month recovery, especially for a running back. I think 10 months from surgery is a great target for a usable fantasy performance. Smola then says Breece Hall's recovery timeline, we're about 10.5 months out from the start of the 2023 season. So Edwin Porras thinks it'll take 10 months for him to get back. We have about 10.5 months until next year's week 1. So we're at least in a spot where it seems like Breece Hall should be, I'm not going to say he should be good to go for week 1, but that's in the cards, right? It's in the cards that he could be good for week 1 and then be back to his normal self by like week 3, 4, 5, 6. Especially because he is so young and because this wasn't such an aggressive over-the-top ACL tear. It seems like it was pretty clean. We'll see. I wish I had more positive news than that. It really, really sucks, man. Just think, I mean, I know a lot of us in Fantasyland lost Breece Hall today, but as a Jets fan, it really does suck, man. It really does suck. He was our entire offense. He was what felt like the spearhead of this, really hot start. But I will say some notes on the Breece Hall thing for the Jets, and we're not going to spend too long on the Jets. I do think that it sucks really bad that Breece Hall is going to be hurt, but it is a slight positive for fantasy because, or not even fantasy, but the Jets' long-term outlook is because we can't lean on Breece Hall in the run game to win us games. Michael Carter is good, but I don't think that he's someone that can win you games. So if we're going to win games and play to our ceiling like we have been, it's going to fall on Zach. I think this would be the perfect time for Elijah Moore to just say, I don't know if he has to say sorry, but I'm just going to be back on the team. Everything's fine. I was tripping, whatever. I didn't mean to request a trade and make a scene in social media. But it would make a lot of sense, right? Because we were throwing passes. Corey Davis was hurt too. So we were throwing passes to like Denzel Mims was playing wide receiver. We had like Vincent Smith out there. It was ugly. If we could get Elijah Moore back, and then because we can't lean on the run game at this point, if we could just lean on the passing game instead, let Zach Wilson throw, have Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, lean on the passing game because Michael Carter won't be able to win us games. And then there we will have the answer. And if we get, 5, 6, 7 weeks down the line and Zach Wilson sucks through all of them and we're like hovering at 500, then at that point, maybe Joe Flacco comes in for a playoff run and we look to a new quarterback in the offseason, or we lean on Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore gets back involved, Garrett Wilson kind of revives things a little bit, and Zach Wilson is our guy for the next 5 years. So I think it's a nice pressure point where Breece Hall wasn't. It was almost like training wheels for the offense for Zach Wilson because Breece Hall, our only touchdown yesterday was a Breece Hall rushing touchdown on like the first drive of the game. Yeah, it was just field goals the rest of the way. So we're going to need Zach Wilson to step up. Zach Wilson did have a terrible game, but Broncos defense has made everybody look pedestrian. We're going to get the real answer in these next few weeks without Breece Hall. So our fourth takeaway is the Bengals are cooking. And Joe Burrow's low-key has some more upside than we thought he did. Now, shout out to Zach Taylor, who I thought, hand up, completely incompetent head coach. At least he's been letting Joe Burrow win games and play offense. They are first in neutral pass rate since week 3. They've had 40 or more dropbacks in the last 2 weeks. Burrow has really stepped up here. He leads the NFL the last 2 weeks in passing grade and yards per attempt and passing touchdowns and fantasy points. He has been a god. But the thing to really keep an eye on is the Konami code upside. I had a tweet earlier where I said he's been an MVP level passer the last few weeks, but it's been his legs that has made the true difference for fantasy. On the ground, Burrow this season has 30 rush attempts for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns in just 7 games. Last year, through his first 7 games, he only had 18 carries for 44 yards and no touchdowns. So he's giving you real production on the ground. Like, he is sort of giving you Konami code upside, and he actually ran the ball a ton in college. Last year, coming off the ACL, I imagine that was the big reason for why he was being more conservative in that realm. But if he's going to have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd to throw to, and they're going to throw the ball a ton, and then on top of that, that means they're going to have a lot of dropbacks, which means on top of that, he's going to be scrambling on a lot of those dropbacks. Joe Burrow, at this point, if you wanted to put him at QB4 after like rest of season, after like Josh Allen, Hurts, and Lamar Jackson, and have him either ahead of or in the same tier as like Herbert, Kyler Murray, whoever else you want to put in there, I wouldn't fight it. Burrow has been that good this year. Now, fifth takeaway for today, the thing we're always going to be doing halfway through these shows now, is the rookie wide receiver report. Now, let's take the guys who are hurt or on bye out of here for now. You also have Tyquan Thornton playing tonight down there. But here's our rookie wide receiver report. These are wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, with 5 or more targets, sorted by their Week 7 route participation. which is just how many routes are you running per drop back, or how many of the dropbacks for your team were you running a route on? I don't know why I struggled to explain that, but at the top we have Chris Olave. Again, Chris Olave continues to be at the top of the rookie wide receiver report. 14 targets this week, 7 catches, 106 yards, 17.6 PPR points, still not scoring touchdowns and still balling out for fantasy. Once the touchdowns come, it's going to get really, really scary for Olave. Quietly, it happened on Thursday, not a lot of buzz around it, but this was his highest target game of the year with 14. He now has 3 of his 6 games played with 13 or more targets. He has an 80-plus PFF grade. He has 25% plus target per out run, a 2+ yards per out run. That's all elite. Really what we're looking for, like, I would say good target per out run is like 20% plus. Elite target per out run is 25% plus. Two or better yards per out run is elite. 80-plus PFF grade is elite. He has elite numbers through his first, 6 games here. He is in the mix as a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. Pretty cut and dry at this point. Now, we also have Alec Pierce, and he had his first starter share of routes at this point. He had 95.8% of the routes after stalling out about 70 to 75% of the routes the last 2 weeks. The issue is the efficiency stalled. He only had 4 targets for 3 catches for 37 yards. He's now at 16% target per out run and 1.6 yards per out run on the year. Not great. Only 62.5 PFF grade. Starting to slow my roll a little bit on Alec Pierce. He's definitely not face planting. He's definitely not a bust, but he also doesn't look like a fun upside hit either. He looks like he might just be a guy in the NFL, but again, it is really, really early, and he did show some stuff between weeks 3 to 5 area. We're hoping that he can sort of rekindle that flame, if you will. Kind of what's been hurting him is Paris Campbell going crazy, so maybe Paris Campbell sort of comes back down to earth soon, but we had big hopes for Alec Pierce the last 2 weeks, but he has sort of stalled out in the efficiency department. We'll talk about Drake London. Arthur Smith is killing him. But per route stuff still looks good. 83.5 PFF grade, 27% target per out run, 2+ yards per out run. All looks good. Still a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. Still rookie wide receiver number 1 for me. Yeah, Pickens last night had his best game of the year, best fantasy game of the year. I believe he had 6 for 60 and a touchdown. He has special hands, man. That touchdown grab, I don't know how he got the feet down. I don't know how he caught it. You had the other primetime game where he had the one-hander. I was joking around on Twitter, but he literally has 99 spectacular catch on Madden. He's that guy. Per route numbers still lacking here. 16.4% target per out run, only 1.35 yards per out run. But that's also partly because he's ran so many routes, and he ran a starter share of routes the first 3 weeks before actually being involved in the game plan. You also have the idea here that Deontay or Claypool could get traded at the deadline, which would be huge for Pickens. He also quietly leads all rookie wide receivers in receiving yards at 338 behind just Olave. So it doesn't lead them, but he's second among rookie wide receivers. You also have Romeo Doubs here, still getting starter reps, right? 91.4% of the routes, still hovering at 90% plus. The issue is that he's struggling a little bit. They're still putting him on the field. He led the team in routes with 32, and it's actually pretty crazy. He had 32 routes. He had 12 more routes than the next highest wide receiver, which was Sammy Watkins with 20. Lazard only had 19 routes. So they love having Romeo Doubs on the outside. I think a good chunk of it is for blocking purposes. He only had 0 catches this week. The targets are slowing down. The catches are slowing down. His per route efficiency is completely tanked. He looked so good before they gave him a starter share of snaps. Now he has 18.9% target per out run, 1.05 yards per out run, really, really bad, and a 55.1 PFF grade, which is only better than David Bell and Danny Gray at this point, which is really, really tough. Now, he also had the worst PFF receiving grade of any Packers wide receiver at 44.5 this weekend. It looks tough. I think, of course, Dobbs is still a hit, right? Where you draft him in rookie drafts, he's still a massive, massive profit. But the upside of being like a Stephon Diggs type round day 3 guy seems like it's pretty much gone at this point. But he does look like he could still be like a Darnell Mooney type guy or like a Robbie Anderson type guy where they were day 3/UDFAs and they kind of find a role in the NFL. Mooney, a lot more unknown since it's so early, but Robbie Anderson kind of had a couple of years here and there. We'll see. His ceiling got limited here, but a lot of season left. He could turn things around. Regardless, again, still having a solid rookie season for what was expected of him, but has sort of underperformed in this starting role. We'll talk about Garrett Wilson here. Jets passing game the last 2 weeks has only 231 total yards. Nobody has produced in this passing game. It's tough to really expect much for Garrett Wilson, but he ran more routes with Elijah Moore gone. He still has strong target per out runs with 23.2%. Yards per out run is taking a hit because of quarterback play, but PFF grade still at 74.5. Still going strong. Would probably have Olave. Olave and Wilson are still very close because I much prefer Wilson the prospect to Olave, but Olave is doing some things right now that it's tough to prefer Wilson over him. I think that they're at the very least in the same tier together with Drake London in a tier by himself as wide receiver 1. I think I would probably give a slight nod to Chris Olave at this point, but I'd have to sit down and really meditate and think about it before making that definitive stance. Now, we'll also talk about Wan'Dale Robinson, who looked as advertised. He had 8 targets, 6 catches, 50 yards for 11 PPR points. Could have been a bigger day. I think he got hurt early on and then came back and sort of slowed his roll a little bit, where I think he might have had like 5 catches at the half. Looked like he was en route to smash, but still ended up fine. 78.4% of the routes after being at 34.4% of the routes. He's starting to work his way up the depth chart. He's a 27% target per out run. He's a 2+ yards per out run. Both numbers we're looking for. He looks legit. PFF grade took a little bit of a hit, 69.2 now, but I would have him. I'd have like London in S tier. I would have Olave and Wilson in that next tier, then probably Pickens, and then probably Wan'Dale Robinson right there around like wide receiver 5 in this rookie class. I don't know if I'm missing anybody, but I would have him right in the mix around wide receiver 5. Then also about David Bell, still awful, still trash. My God, that's bad, dude. 7.4% target per out run, 0.6 yards per out run, 50.3 PFF grade. Really, really, really bad. Sky Moore, we're going to need him to crack 50% of the routes very soon. Very soon, or it's looking extremely tough for our guy Sky Moore here. Still hovering around 30% of the routes. Had just 1 target for 0 catches against the Niners on Sunday. Like I said, we're going to need more playing time, or things are going to get ugly here very soon. Our last takeaway for the rookie wide receiver report is Danny Gray is a new addition, but there's nothing really to see here. He ran 11% of the routes. He played mostly in garbage time. He now has 5 targets on the year with 0 yards and 0 catches on those 5 targets. Really, really bad. Worst PFF grade among all these guys. Danny Gray is not a name to remember. Everyone else is either hurt or on bye, but here are their numbers. And keep an eye out for Tyquan Thornton tonight. He has a chance to really bump up his numbers. Would love to see him be in that 75% plus route participation area. But that is it for our rookie wide receiver report. Now, our 6th takeaway is, again, Arthur Smith. I wrote this as Arthur Smith, darkness, my old friend. And we keep talking about Arthur Smith, but he keeps giving us stuff to talk about. The idea with Arthur Smith here is that he runs almost a high school offense. He refuses to pass the ball. He's always running the ball. And the idea is, okay, Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to be really tough starts when the Falcons are winning games, but when they lose games and they finally have to pass the ball, they'll be all right. The issue is that they were trailing by 7 or more points for 100% of their snaps on Sunday, the Falcons. They dropped back to pass. I don't know why I can't talk. They dropped back to pass on just 45% of plays. The NFL average this season when trailing by 7 or more points has been 72% in that scenario. So, despite trailing by a touchdown or more the entire Sunday, they still refuse to pass the ball at even a league average rate. It is insane. It is crazy. Kyle Pitts had a 38.5% target share, and it did not matter. He had 9 receiving yards on the day to Drake London's 9 receiving yards. The Falcons only passed 13 times in a 35-17 loss. Pitts and London combined for 4 catches for 18 yards in a 35-17 loss. How does that even happen? How do they not pass the ball more than that? I don't get it. And it's tough because it's not like Arthur Smith is on the hot seat. I think this is something that we'll have to deal with this season, possibly even next season. It sucks all the way around. Like, I don't know what we have to hope for a Drake London or a Kyle Pitts game, because it clearly, game script does not matter to Arthur Smith. So if you have Falcons bags like me and you have Drake London or Kyle Pitts, it is time to be upset. And I'm not really sure there's anything I can tell you to comfort you about this grievance. Now, our 7th takeaway is, what the hell is going on with Tom Brady? The Bucs lose 21-3. Brady had 32 completions on 49 attempts for 290 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. It's just been weird. Brady hasn't really made a ton of mistakes, right? He's not throwing picks. He had the 7th best PFF passer grade. He was only on under pressure on 19.6% of his throws, which was the 3rd lowest yesterday. So the narrative that his offensive line's not doing him any favors isn't really all that true. His 7.9 average depth of target wasn't awful. That was 12th on the day. To me, if I'm being honest, it feels like the Bucs are just getting unlucky here. Mike Evans had 13 targets. He only turned that into 9 catches for 96 yards. Usually he's somebody that can turn 13 targets into like 150 yards and like a touchdown. Godwin, same thing, only 12 targets. He turned 12 targets into 7 catches for 43 yards. If you give out 25 targets combined to Evans and Godwin, you can't only turn that into like 140 receiving yards. It has to be more than that. I do think that better days are ahead, but it is tough to keep on just saying, give the Bucs some time. Don't freak out, fellas, because it has been super, super tough. Now, our next takeaway I listed as a legendary running back tracker here, where we have 3 running backs right now with over 20 points per game, Austin Eckler being one of them. And I just wanted to take note, Austin Eckler has had a little bit of a role change this season. Last year, he had 42 targets through 7 games with a 13.9% target share. This year, he has 61 targets through 7 games with a 19.8% target share. So he has like 6% better target share, and he has like 19 more targets than he did last year through 7 games, 25 points per game right now. Last year was at 21.5 points per game through 7 weeks. Eckler is playing out of his damn mind, and I'm not sure with Mike Williams now hurt, right? They're going to go into bye, and then Keenan Allen should be back. Mike Williams still hurt. You also have Josh Palmer dealing with injury. I don't think Eckler's involvement in the passing game is really going to slow down. It is pretty crazy, though, because we haven't seen him be used as a passer like this or as a pass catcher like this since Phillip Rivers. When he came in there, like during the Melvin Gordon year, he had like 100-plus targets. He was really, really good. If this receiving role sticks for the entire year, he will probably put up like a 24, 25 point per game season and give us a true legendary running back season. A little bit pessimistic that it sticks for the entire year, but we'll see. I'll also say Josh Jacobs is playing out of his damn mind, 22.2 points per game. We only have 3 running backs over 20 points per game right now. Jacobs now has 4 straight games of 4 or more targets, and he has 3 games of 30-plus PPR points. He has been playing out of his damn mind. And then, of course, Saquon has just been steady Eddie this year, 20.2 points per game. We would like that to be closer to 25 to be a true hero or to be a true legendary RB season, but this year in terms of fantasy scoring, it's been so tough to come by that we'll truly take any running back over 20 points per game. After that, we have our 9th takeaway, which is the Cowboys deflation game. We were expecting fireworks, a shootout, like we saw with the Lions and the Seahawks, or the Lions and Washington, or the Lions and the Eagles. The Lions keep drawing teams into shootouts. 48.5 point over-under. The game finishes 24-6, only scoring 30 points, underperforming the point total by like 30, or no. I'm an idiot. By 18.5. And the Lions' top 0.5 PPR scorers in this game were Khalif Raymond, their kicker, and Brock Wright. I don't even know who Brock Wright is. In a game where we thought Amon-Ra St. Brown and Swift were destined to go off in a big shootout. Now, on the Cowboys side, you had Zeke with 17.7 points. Dak had 12.3 points. And only 4 catches for 70 yards for CeeDee Lamb, all against a Lions defense that is like 32nd in total DVOA. Maybe we jumped the gun thinking that the Cowboys were going to do really well in this game. Maybe Dak needs some time to ramp up and get up to speed after his injury. I'm not all that worried long term. It does just suck in the short term that this game was not as high scoring as we were expecting. Now, I wanted to cover in this last takeaway here the tricky backfield of the NFL, the Chiefs, the Panthers, and the Ravens here. And first we'll talk about the Chiefs, who had Pacheco reported before the game as the starter. And I kind of feel like an idiot now for taking that so seriously. Pacheco was still pretty much in his same role where he had, 19 of like 60 snaps. I think like only like a 30% target share or snap share for a guy who was like leading, who's supposed to be like the starter. 19 snaps and 8 carries is pretty underwhelming. He led the backfield in touches with 8 carries for 43 yards, but that was it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire still got there on a touchdown, but he only had like 36 yards. McKinnon led the running backs in snaps, but he was just the passing down guy, didn't really do a ton. This backfield is going to be a headache moving forward. I don't know why they just came out and was like, yeah, we're just going to start Pacheco. It didn't really change all that much. Then we also had the Panthers backfield, which is pretty funny that They trade away Christian McCaffrey, and both of their running backs, Hubbard and Foreman, rushed for like over 170 yards combined. They both had like 7 yards per carry or better. Hubbard left with an injury, but it appears to be a split between Hubbard and Deonta Foreman, where Hubbard is handling passing downs plus some rushing work, and then Foreman is between the tackles grinder. Moving forward, I probably prefer Foreman. He did just look a little bit more explosive, but I think that they're both fine plays. I will say I don't expect them to give teams problems like they did to the Bucs, where it was 21-3 positive game script. I think that this is probably a decent spot to get out of either of these running backs if you can so. I'm not expecting both of them to be startable like they were this week. I think they're both going to be pretty tough starts moving forward, but at least there was some kind of positive to gain. Again, Hubbard, I believe, is going to be in the passing down role, right? He had 8 of 8 long down and distance snaps, and then Foreman will be the between the tackles, between the 20s guy. We didn't see a goal line carry, but I would assume that would go to Deonta Foreman in most scenarios. Then we have the Ravens, and this one was pretty funny, where Kenyon Drake was the lead back last week, had 100-plus yards, and then he has 25% of the snaps, lower than Justice Hill at 32% and Gus Edwards at 37%. Gus Bus comes out there and looks amazing off an ACL tear. He had 16 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns, completely usable fantasy day, despite just having 37% of the snaps. He had as many carries as Kenyon Drake and Justice Hill combined. I think with Dobbins out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, Gus Edwards should be the lead back until Dobbins is back, and he's probably going to be like a top 30 running back play rest of season, right in that fringe area of RB2 streamers for hero RB team. So if you have Gus Edwards out there, you got a good one. Now, that is going to do it for us today, fellas. I think that we covered pretty much everything we need to cover. I'm going to go upstairs and wallow in sadness over this Breece Hall news. I'm very upset. I don't even want the Jets to trade for a running back. I don't even Kareem Hunt's kind of interesting, but I don't know. Like I said, the only positive I can take away from that Breece Hall injury is we're going to have to see what Zach Wilson is. I really hope that LaFleur doesn't just force the run, even in passing situations, and we let Zach Wilson throw the ball, 30-plus times and just see if he's got it. Like I said, I hope Elijah Moore comes back and we just lean on the passing game, or at least let Zach Wilson lean on the passing game and see what comes of it. Now, I've hit my quota for Jets talk. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Me.